The state of California has decided there's a problem, and they're calling it a housing crisis, but what we really have is a housing affordability crisis. And all of the methods that the state is using to pressure the cities to build housing is only going to build more market rate housing. We have a very, very small percentage of it will be affordable. But the numbers that have been assigned to cities in many cases are overwhelming and unachievable. In the area I live in here, most of Marin County is undeveloped because there are so many hazards here of every kind. There's sea level rise, we have earthquake, liquefaction zones, dangers from fire, we don't even have sewer systems that can be upgraded. So to be asked to add, thousands of people to each one of these really small towns where we don't even have more than 20 available lots for development, we're being asked to add 865 to this small town. And of that 865, 40% of them are supposed to be market rate. And the problem with this area is it's very expensive because it's very beautiful. And most of the houses here are already market rate. So we don't need to keep adding more expensive houses. The kind of housing that's required here is moderately priced housing, workforce housing. The state laws are completely in conflict with the state policies of how much housing is supposed to go in. Because every time you build a development, you really only have to put about 10% affordable housing in to have perks of, really pretty massive structures. So if you're only adding 10 at a time for every 90 you're putting in, the numbers just explode. And you end up with tremendous amount of market rate housing and just a little bit of affordable housing. One of the largest cities that we have in Marin County is San Rafael. Right now, the population of San Rafael is about 50,000 people. It was assigned 3,220 units. So 40% of those would be set aside for market rate, and the rest would be set aside as below market rate, which is considered affordable. That's in 3 categories. It's very low, low, and moderate income levels. And here in Marin, moderate income level is about $99,000 to $140,000. It's not what most people realize that low-income housing is when you do it in an area with very high average median income. So the 3,220, when you break it down, you need, of those below market units, 1,780. But when you're adding them 10 at a time, because 10% is basically what most projects will add, you end up with 18,000 market rate units to the 1,870 that are considered affordable. So you basically end up with 22,000, 23,000 units total when you were supposed to have 3,200. If you add 25,000 or even 20,000 units to San Rafael and you add 2 people to each one, that's 40,000 more people, you've doubled the size of your city. And this is not a city that can absorb anywhere near that kind of population. We have very, very difficult water restrictions here because all of our water comes from rain. So whatever reservoir systems are in place now, that's all we have. If a fire happens, they'll all be contaminated. So there are a lot of considerations that have to go into building any kind of things into a city when there's infrastructure issues that the cities have. And all of these demands from the state do not come with money to create this infrastructure. These are considered unfunded mandates, which are unconstitutional in the state of California. But because we have a housing crisis, we've been told that we can just raise money. We can sell bonds, we can raise taxes, and we can just pay for all of this. And meanwhile, in some cities, they're actually reducing the amount of impact fees that developers have to pay because they're so desperate to get this housing started. If this happened, it would destroy California. If every city grew by 100%, it makes no sense. There are no jobs here to support that. We've lost over 35,000 jobs already in tech, which were the best jobs. So what you have right now, we have 55,000 unused housing units in San Francisco right now that people are just holding off the market. There's about 55,000 in the pipeline, but we're hitting a point where developers aren't going to want to build all of this stuff because they can't fill it with people. In San Jose right now, they're starting to offer perks if you move into a building of like they'll reduce your rent for a month or two because they're competing now with tenants at the higher level rates. They don't want to build those other units. So it changes the landscape entirely to do this. And it's going to intrude into all of the very carefully, preserved environmental areas that we have. And as of now, it will be allowed along the coast. It will be allowed to override the Coastal Commission. It's incredibly damaging. And it likely won't happen because of market forces. And cities are punished then if the development doesn't occur. So we don't have any control over anything except for approving a project. When a developer has an approved project, they can decide to pull a permit and build it, or they don't have to. But if they don't, and our housing element falls short, and we don't have the capacity now to show that we're going to put those units, there are further punishments. They go up from being sued by the state and being sued by other entities like the California Association of Realtors to very heavy fines. It's $10,000 a day. It ends up at $600,000, and then it increases sixfold. That's a new law. So these laws are basically hundreds of laws at this point are contradicting each other or building on top of each other, and no one actually understands which law supersedes what. It's completely confusing. So how this can actually be done, it can't be done. So it's an impossible task. It sets up every city to fail. And when you fail, not only do you have these financial penalties, but you can end up in receivership. You have more of your local control stripped away. So you end up basically with the state running everything, deciding that developers can do whatever they want, and long-term planning is just a thing of the past. The first thing you need to do is you need to get involved. You need to go to your city, find out what your city housing element, if it's been approved or not. And on that city housing element, you will see every single location in your city that has been rezoned to hold this housing. If you live in a city where there isn't a lot of space, you're going to find out that most of your local businesses are on that list. And they're considered underutilized space. So if you can imagine all of this stuff being built out, you're going to lose your stores, you're going to lose your gyms, you're going to lose anything that actually is providing jobs and services to you right now would have to be replaced by housing. This type of research that I do, where I can help every city figure out actually what would happen if they did develop out the way that they're supposed to, is a very strong message. And then they can share that message with their city councils who have not figured this out for some reason. They have not looked out to the future. And I'm just hoping that if every city really starts pushing back, there will be more lawsuits against the state, and finally those will be heard. This is going to affect everybody. It's a profit-making enterprise, and the public is absolutely uninformed about what is happening, and they're blaming their city governments, and it's not the city government's fault.